If you want to be wealthy and happy, let me begin with a strange truth that most people never hear in their entire lifetime. Your life today is a mirror of what you've tolerated yesterday, and your future is nothing more than the harvest of the seeds you are planting in your mind right now. You see, everyone wants more money, more joy, more peace. But wanting isn't enough. Wishing doesn't work. What changes everything is who you're becoming while you wait. Most people work hard on their job, but never work on themselves. And that's the tragedy. Because wealth is not something you chase, it's something you attract by the person you become. When I first heard the words, work harder on yourself than you do on your job, I thought they were just clever. But the longer I lived with them, the more I understood they hold the secret to a life of wealth and happiness. You see, your job gives you a paycheck, but your self-development gives you a fortune. Most people spend years perfecting their craft, climbing corporate ladders, chasing promotions, but very few ever stop to upgrade the person doing the work. When I was a young man, I had pennies in my pocket and dust in my dreams. I worked hard, sure, but not on the right thing. I was showing up to work, but I wasn't showing up for myself. Asterisk. Then one day, it hit me. You don't get paid for the hour. You get paid for the value you bring to the hour. And the only way to increase your value is to increase you. The more you become, the more you attract, not just in money, but in opportunity, influence, and peace of mind. There's a story I once heard of a mason who built walls day after day, never improving his skill. Another mason, on the other hand, read every night, studied architectural design, and practiced new techniques. Within a few years, he wasn't just laying bricks, he was designing buildings, leading teams, owning projects. Same work, but one worked harder on the craft, the other on himself. And guess who ended up wealthy and fulfilled? You see, the outside world is a reflection of the inside one. You can't expect abundance in your hands if there's scarcity in your thinking. Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor and Stoic, once wrote, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts. If your thoughts are small, your life will shrink to fit them. But if your thoughts are rich in discipline, vision, learning, humility, your life begins to expand in ways you never imagined." So don't just aim for success, aim to deserve it. And you do that by working harder on you than anything else. That's where the real transformation begins. If you'll stay with me tonight, I promise to give you the ideas that changed my life and could very well change yours if you're ready to listen, ready to learn, and ready to act. I used to think success was something you chased, like a rabbit around the track, always running, always out of reach. I thought if I just moved faster, pushed harder, maybe success would eventually let me catch it. But I was wrong. Success is not something you pursue. It's something you attract by the person you become. That was a tough lesson to swallow, because it meant I had to stop blaming the world. It meant I had to turn the spotlight inward and ask, who am I becoming? You see, life doesn't give you what you want. It gives you what you deserve. And who you are determines what you attract. If you want more, you must become more. That's the secret they don't teach in school. Let me put it this way. A magnet doesn't chase metal, it draws it. That's what character does. That's what discipline does. That's what growth does. Success, wealth, love, peace, these things don't run from you, but they don't run toward you either. I remember a time I envied those who had more than I did. I thought maybe they had better luck or better circumstances. But I realized they weren't lucky. They were prepared. They had habits, perspectives, and disciplines I had never adopted. Once I stopped wishing for success and started building myself, that's when things changed. Slowly at first, then suddenly. Aristotle once said, "We are what we repeatedly do. Excellence, then, is not an act, but a habit." That truth alone will save you years of frustration. Instead of chasing success, chase excellence, chase consistency, chase growth. Become so valuable that success has no choice but to find you. So don't ask, how can I get more? Ask, how can I become more? Because when you do that, you won't have to run after success. It'll quietly show up, take a seat, and say, "I've been waiting for you." There's something strange about money. It always finds its way back to where it belongs. You could take all the wealth in the world, divide it equally among every man, woman, and child, and in just a matter of time, it would all find its way back into the same hands. Why? Because money doesn't stay where it isn't understood. That's why I say, if you receive $1 million, your first goal isn't to spend it, it's to become a millionaire. You see, it's not the money that makes the man, it's the man who makes the money. Wealth is not a number in your account. It's a level of wisdom, mindset, and responsibility. And if you don't rise to that level, the wealth will slip right through your fingers. I've seen it too many times. Someone stumbles into money, maybe through inheritance or luck, and within a few short years, they're back where they started or worse. The external fortune grew, but the internal man remained small. A farmer once said, "If you want a strong barn, build strong hands first. Because if your hands can't carry the weight of the harvest, the barn won't matter." It's the same with success. The moment life gives you more than you're ready to manage, it begins to disappear. A sudden rise in fortune will only last if there's a rise in maturity and vision to match it. You've got to learn how to handle abundance, how to invest it, protect it, multiply it. That takes discipline, education, and character. Seneca the Stoic once warned, "Wealth is the slave of a wise man and the master of a fool." If you want to stay wealthy, you must first become the kind of person that wealth obeys. So if a windfall comes your way, be grateful but don't relax. Get to work on yourself. Double time. Read more. Learn more. Become sharper. Because if you want to keep $1 million, you must earn the title of millionaire, not just by the number in your account, but by the strength in your soul. When I was a young man, I thought the problem was money. I thought if I could just get a little more in my pocket, a little more in my paycheck, everything would turn around. But someone wise told me, money isn't your problem, it's only a symptom. That was hard to hear, but it was true. The real problem wasn't money, it was the lack of an idea. Because if you have the right idea, you can create anything from scratch. There was a time I stood in front of my mentor and said, "I'm broke." And without blinking, he said, "That's not a problem." Now that confused me. I thought being broke was the biggest problem. But then he said, your problem isn't being broke, it's not having an idea on how to fix it. That was the first time I realized that the solution to my situation didn't exist outside of me. It was already waiting inside me. I just hadn't discovered it yet. Ideas are like seeds. A single seed, planted and nurtured, can become a forest. But most people never stop long enough to plant. They're too busy worrying about the fruit they don't have, instead of cultivating the soil of their mind. Plato once said, thinking is the talking of the soul with itself. Most people avoid that conversation. But if you want to be wealthy and happy, you've got to become a thinker, asterisk, a seeker, a builder of ideas. Just think about it. Every great business, every breakthrough, every fortune that's ever been made began as an idea in someone's mind. Coca-Cola, the light bulb, the telephone, even the wheel, none of it existed until someone said, there must be a better way. And then they thought it into being. You don't need a miracle, you need a method, asterisk. And methods come from ideas. But you don't find ideas unless you go looking. Read books, watch people, ask questions, be curious. Because the more you search, the more you discover. And one day, one idea, just one, could make you so valuable that wealth can't help but find you. One of the biggest mistakes people make is leaving success to chance. They hope it'll just show up one day, like the weather changing or the lottery hitting. But let me tell you something that changed my life. Hope is not a strategy. Asterisk. If you want to be wealthy and happy, you've got to study success like your life depends on it, because it does. When I finally got serious about changing my life, I realized I had studied everything except success. I had studied just enough to get by, to hold a job, to pay bills, but I had never studied how people become wealthy, why people stay happy, what kind of thinking leads to prosperity. And when that realization hit, I made a decision. I was going to study success like a scientist studies nature with curiosity, focus, and intensity. You wouldn't trust a surgeon who never studied medicine. You wouldn't fly on a plane with a pilot who never opened a flight manual. Yet people go through life hoping to land in wealth and happiness without ever cracking open a book, listening to an idea, or observing someone who's already there. That's not wisdom, that's gambling. Socrates said, the unexamined life is not worth living. I say the unstudied life is not worth repeating. Asterisk. You've got to ask yourself, what do successful people do that I don't? What do they read? How do they spend their time? What are their habits, their thoughts, their values? When you study these things, really study them, you begin to see patterns. And when you act on those patterns, you start to see results. I remember reading one book that saved me 5 years of mistakes. Just one. That's the power of learning from someone else's experience instead of only your own. There are men and women who have written down the exact principles they followed to rise from nothing to abundance, and their words are sitting on your bookshelf, unopened. That's the real tragedy. So don't just live, study how to live. Study success the way you'd study to survive. Because the truth is, the difference between mediocrity and mastery is not chance, it's study. There came a time when I had to face a hard truth. My formal education had ended, but my real education had barely begun. The classroom had closed its doors, but life was just opening its gates. And it didn't take long to see that if I was going to be wealthy and happy, I'd have to go far beyond what the school system ever taught me. Because while formal education makes you a living, self-education, that's what makes you a fortune. You see, the world rewards value, and value comes from understanding more than what everyone else does. If you only know what everyone else knows, you'll get what everyone else gets. But if you're willing to go further, to become a student of life, asterisk, a student of wealth, asterisk, a student of people, asterisk, you'll separate yourself from the crowd. Confucius once said, education breeds confidence. Confidence breeds hope. Hope breeds peace. That's what self-education does. It breeds strength from the inside out. It builds the kind of wealth that isn't just in your wallet, it's in your speech, your posture, your thinking. You walk into a room and people can tell you've been studying, asterisk. You've been growing, asterisk. You've been preparing, asterisk. And here's the truth, most people won't do it. They'll scroll, they'll wish, they'll hope, but they won't take the time to invest in themselves. And that's why self-education sets you apart. Because when you learn something new every day, you become someone new every day. And the marketplace pays richly for those who are rare. So if you want to rise, don't just count hours, count lessons. Asterisk. Seek them. Record them. Live them. Because the more you learn, the more you earn, not just in income, but in impact, in influence, and in inner peace. Let me leave you with this: wealth and happiness are not reserved for the lucky or the gifted. They are earned by the willing to grow, willing to learn, and most of all, willing to change. You don't have to accept life as it is. You can shape it, mold it, and transform it by shaping, molding, and transforming yourself. Asterisk. The great news is, you already have what it takes: the mind, the heart, the time, the choice. But you must use them. Don't let another year go by repeating the last one. Don't wait for someone else to change your life. It's your life. Own it. Build it. Begin with personal development. Stay with discipline. Fuel it with ideas and finish with wisdom. That's the path. That's the bridge between where you are and everything you desire. So here's the call. Start. Asterisk. Not next month. Not when it's convenient. Today. Asterisk. Start reading. Start journaling. Start building that future version of yourself that success will be proud to meet. Because if you want to be wealthy and happy, don't wish for it. Become the kind of person who attracts it. And remember, you can change your life anytime you truly decide to. Let this be the time